This video is part 2 of music theory basics. The previous part was talking about the basic terminologies that you need to know, and in this part we're gonna be talking about how to actually make music out of these terms. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is intervals. What is an interval? In music, an interval is basically the distance between two notes. If I play these two notes like this, I'm playing a certain interval, and this interval is known as the interval of a perfect fifth. In the previous video, we've already spoken about the interval of a half step and the interval of a whole step. We said the half step is the smallest interval in music. A half step looks like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. And the interval of a whole step looks like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. All right. So in today's video, I want to talk about what we call perfect intervals. They're called perfect intervals because you can play them on any range on the keyboard and they're still gonna sound cool. They're still gonna sound nice. For example, we have the interval of a perfect fifth. If I play a perfect fifth down here, it still sounds cool. If I play it here, if I play here, if I play it here, it still sounds musically pleasing. Alright, unlike if I play a half step, it's starting to sound dissonant the lower you go. Alright, even the whole step, it sounds dissonant the lower you go. Alright, when you go high, you can kind of tolerate it. The dissonance is there, but then it's not that much. Alright, so we have the interval of an octave. An octave is basically the interval of 12 half steps. For example, from C to C. If I count from C and go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is an interval of an octave. I'm just playing C higher. This is an interval of an octave. Octave, 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 octave. Alright, you get the idea. And we have the interval of a perfect fourth. The interval of a perfect fourth is basically the interval of 5 half steps. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By the way, another name for a half step is a semitone. Alright, so it's 5 semitones. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is an interval of a perfect fourth. And the interval of a perfect fifth is basically 7 half steps. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps. This is an interval of a perfect fifth. The interval of a perfect fourth and the interval of a perfect fifth are basically inversions of each other. So the interval of a perfect fourth is basically a perfect fifth inverted. For example, let's take these two notes, C, F. We said this is a perfect fourth, alright? So C, F, and let's invert them and play them as F, C. Remember, we count starting from the lower note, and the lower notes are on your left hand, and then the higher notes are on your right hand, alright? So F, C. It's no longer a perfect fourth. It was a perfect fourth here, but then here it's no longer a perfect fifth. It's a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's now a perfect fifth. But if you invert the notes, you get a perfect fourth, perfect fifth. So perfect fourth and perfect fifth are basically inversions of each other. Alright. So now let's talk about third intervals. We have an interval of a major third and an interval of a minor third. So an interval of a major third is basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps or semitones. This is an interval of a major third. And an interval of a minor third is basically 3 half steps. 0, 1, 2, 3. This is an interval of a minor third. Alright? The only difference between them is a semitone. So, what is a scale and what is a key? Well, the words scale and a key are used interchangeably. Sometimes I can say a scale when I'm talking about a key. Sometimes I can say a key when I'm talking about a scale. And when I say key, I'm not talking about a keyboard key like this is a key. I'm not talking about this. So, what is a scale? A scale is basically a group of notes that sound good together, a group of notes that make musical sense. For example, if I place this, it makes no musical sense. I'm just playing notes at random. It's not music, all right? That's because those notes don't belong in a scale. The reason why we know which notes to play on the keyboard is because we play notes that belong to a certain scale. And if I go, I'm playing now, it's starting to make musical sense because I'm playing notes that belong to a certain scale. All right? So that's basically what a scale is. And what is a key? A key is the starting note of a scale. The first note of the scale is called the root note. Is also called the key of a scale. All right. So how many notes do we have in music? We have 12 notes. All right. Meaning any type of scale, you can play it 12 times. All right. You can play it starting on any note. For example, how many scales do we have? We have a whole lot of them. And to be honest, I don't even know all of them because I don't use all of them. And probably 90% of the music you've heard doesn't even use all of the scales. So, how many scales should you learn? In my opinion, you only need to learn one, and that's the major scale. We have the major scale, the minor scale, and other scales. I don't want to mention them in this video, all right? You don't need to know them as a beginner. The reason why I say you need to know the major scale is because the major scale is the father of all scales. What do I mean by that? Everything in music is going to be derived from the major scale or compared to the major scale. One of the two, all right? So if you learn the major scale, all those other scales are gonna just come from the major scale. So you need to know your major scale in and out. All right. So how do we build a major scale? How do we formulate a major scale? We use this formula. And this formula says from your root note or your starting note, let's say C for example, you're gonna go up a whole step, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, a whole step, and a half step. The last half step basically takes you to the note that you started with. It takes you back to the root. All right. Remember, this C and this C are the same. All right. So that's the formula for the major scale. Now let's use the same formula to formulate let's say the A major scale. You're gonna go from a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. How about from A flat? Root note or starting note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. All right. So that's how we use the formula. All right. So that's why it's important to know your whole steps and your half steps. All right, cool. So you can play a major scale starting with any note. We have 12 notes in music, meaning we have 12 major scales. And the major scale, it doesn't matter where you started from, it's gonna sound the same. Listen to this. It sounds the same, just that you can tell that you're starting it from a different key, from a different root note or a key. A key is basically the home base of the song or the music. All right. So if I'm listening to a song, any song, the there's a point that feels like home or a note that feels like home in that song, and that song is the key of the song. When you're on that note, it feels like the music has resolved, like it's stable. All right. So That's basically what a key is. It's the home of a song. Let me demonstrate. If I play this, if I and leave it like that, there's a lot of tension. And like it sounds like it's not resolved. It sounds like it's still going somewhere. But if I go, it sounds like it's resolved. So this, that's the key. That's the home. All right. So you're gonna ask this question every day, every time you wanna learn a new song, or people are gonna ask you this question. So they're gonna ask you what key is that song in? All right. So how do you answer that question? You answer it by saying, "Oh, it's in the key of C major. Oh, it's in the key of A flat, maybe B flat, maybe F sharp major." All right. So what is that answer saying? That answer saying it's basically saying C is gonna be my home, it's gonna be my starting note. If I said C major, it means that C is gonna be my home or my starting note or my root, is gonna be my key. All right, and then major simply means that I'm only gonna be using C notes from the C major scale. All right, and then what if the song was in the key of C minor? In the key of C major and in the key of C minor, C is the root note. All right. So the only difference is that those scales are not the same, and those scales are not gonna have the same notes. For example, this is C major and this is C minor. I st- in both examples I started with the note C. C is the root, is the home in both scales. All right. But the scales are different. That's why you need to specify whether the song is in C major or in C minor. All right, cool. So now I want to talk about the idea of chords. What is a chord? A chord is basically three or more notes played together at the same time. If I play this, I'm playing a chord. If I play this, it's a chord. It's a chord. Sometimes chords look like this, like this. All right. Sometimes they look like this. Sometimes they look like this. Sometimes they look like this. I said three or more notes. All right. So this type of chord that has three notes is known as a triad. All right. A chord is basically harmony on a musical instrument. For example, if let's think of a choir. In a choir, you have tenor, alto, soprano. Right. Some choirs even have the bass. All right. Tenor, alto, soprano. In a choir, the tenor is probably gonna be this, the lowest note, all right, and the alto is gonna be the middle note, and the soprano is gonna be the highest note. So chords, choir are related. So this type of a chord that has three notes is known as a triad. Triads are basically the foundation. You need to know all your triads in and out. They're basically the foundation of music. Because all those other chords, these chords are basically a combination of triads. Alright, so if you know your triads, you sorted. So, how many triads do we have? We have four types of triads. And to that list, I like adding the suspended chords. So, to my list, we have six types of triads. Alright, so we have the major triad, the minor triad, the diminished triad, the augmented triad, and then we have the sus chords, sus2, sus4, sus4 suspended. All right, so we have a major triad. A major triad looks like this. It's basically the interval of a perfect fifth with a major third, perfect fifth. So how do you build a major triad? You're gonna choose any note and start counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. This is a major triad, all right? Starting with any note 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. This is a major triad, all right? This is a C major triad because it starts with the note C, and this is A flat major triad because it starts with the note A flat, all right? Or A flat is the root, all right? Or C is the root, all right? So How do we build a minor triad? 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, the major triad and the minor triad all have a perfect fifth. The difference between them is a third. The major triad has a major third, and the minor triad has a minor third. All the other triads that I'm going to talk about now are not going to be that important to you as a beginner, all right? But you just need to know them. So we have a diminished triad. How do you build it? A diminished triad is a symmetrical chord, all right? Meaning it's divided with two, it's divided equally, all right? Symmetrical. So from C, let's build a C diminished chord. We're gonna go C, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, 3, 3, symmetrical. So that's how you build a diminished chord. 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's a diminished triad. And how do you build an augmented triad? An augmented triad is also another type of a symmetrical chord. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a C augmented triad. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is an A flat augmented triad. All right, cool. So how about the sus2 and the sus4? 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the suspended second or the suspended 2 chord, all right? And then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. It has a perfect fourth and a perfect fifth at the same time. This is a suspended fourth chord, all right? So we're done with the triads, all right? You need to know all your major and your minor triads. All those other triads, you can learn them a little bit later, all right? But you can learn all of them if you have time and the mental capacity and the stamina to learn all of them. Just learn them at the same time, all of them, all right? Cool. So now I want us to talk about the idea of inversions. What is an inversion? Look at this chord here. This is a C major chord. What if I take this C and play it up here? What is this chord now? It's still a C major chord, all right? Because remember the notes in the C major chord, C, E, G, and now I'm just playing E, G, C, all right? So I'm playing the same notes in a different order. They still make the same chord, all right? So this triad that starts with the root note, that has the root note as the lowest note, is known as the root position triad. And then this triad that has the third as as the lowest note is known as the first inversion. And then this one is the second inversion because it has the fifth at the bottom. All right, so chords are usually played like this. We play the chord this side and then we play, and then on your left hand you play the bass note. So this is a C major triad, all right? So what if I do this? What if I invert these notes and play this here? This is still a C major triad root position. Why? Because I still have the root at the bottom. It doesn't matter if I invert the upper, like the actual triad itself, I still have the root at the bottom, all right? So that's why this program, it's not changing. It still says C, just C major, all right? So but if I play this triad here and play this here, this is the first inversion. This is the first inversion, and this one is also a first inversion, and this one, it's a first inversion because the lowest note is the third, all right? So you get the idea. So you can invert other chords, minor chords, first inversion, diminished chords. You can invert them. You can invert augmented chords. You can invert all those other chords, all right? So cool. Now I want to talk about the idea of diatonic chords. What are diatonic chords? Diatonic, the word diatonic means that everything that you're going to be playing is going to be belonging to a certain key. So that's what diatonic is. So diatonic chords are chords that belong to a certain key or scale, all right, that have all the notes that belong to that key or scale. For example, let's go to C major because it's easy to see. It's only white notes, meaning if I play all these white notes here, I'm playing the C major scale, all right? So this C chord, this C major, is a diatonic triad because it has all the notes that belong in C major. The C is in C major, this one is in C major, this one is in C major, all right? So it's a diatonic triad. Even this B diminished, even this, all these chords that I'm playing are diatonic triads. All these notes that I'm playing are diatonic notes because they belong to a certain key. They belong to a key of C major, all right? So if I play this, is this a diatonic chord in the key of C major? No. The name of the chord is C augmented, but it's not a diatonic triad, or it's not a diatonic chord because it has an A flat, and we don't have the note A flat in the key of C major. So I hope you get the idea. All right. So in every major chord, the chords are arranged in this way. The first, the fourth, and the fifth chord are always going to be major chords. The second, third, sixth chord are always going to be minor chords, and the seventh chord is always going to be a diminished chord. For example, look at this: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, I'm sorry, and then B diminished, and then C major, right? So all these diatonic triads, it doesn't matter which key you start with. Let's go back to A flat. All right, so that's our scale. How do we build chord? You go to you play the note that you wanna build a chord on. You skip the following note in the scale. You play the other one. You skip the following note in the scale. It's easy. Write them in a form of a circle so that you're able to see that. Okay, you just skip this one. You play this one. You skip this one. You play this one. So skip this, play this, skip this, play this. This is the A flat major triad. All right. So this is the A flat major triad. All right. So now let's see the arrangement of chords in the A flat major scale. We have the A flat major, B flat minor, C minor, D flat major, E flat major, F minor, and then G diminished, and then back to what? Back to our A flat major. So this arrangement and the previous arrangement are the same, all right? So the arrangement of C major triads or C major chord and the arrangement of it doesn't matter, it's always gonna be the same because it's a major scale, all right? Remember, you can play a major scale starting with any note, and all the chords and all the diatonic chords are always gonna be arranged in the same way because they have because we're using the same formula, all right? We're using the same formula to build a major scale on any note, so the chords are always going to be the same, all right? So how do we use these chords and to make music? Well, you just arrange them in any order. You just use musical judgment. You just listen and you just pick a key, let's say C major, and you play diatonic notes from that key, all right? Diatonic chords from that key and arrange them in any order that you like, in any order that sounds good to you. But then, for example, let's just arrange these notes. Let's say, how about we go from C major, G major, A minor, F major, or maybe let's go from C major, F major, A minor, and then G major. You just uh, you can even invert them instead to avoid jumping around like this. Nobody say, like, there's no rule that says you should play them in root positions, so you can invert them. right? They even sound better when you invert them, all right? So invert your chords, all right? So when somebody says play me a C major chord, you don't really have to play it like this. Play it in any inversion that sounds cool to you, all right? So that's basically how we use diatonic triads to make music. You don't make music with chords that are not diatonic, all right? For example, you can go like I'm playing the right chords, but then they make no musical sense because I'm just playing chords that, like, I'm just pulling chords out of, thin air. So, but if I play diatonic chords, if I arrange them in any order, they sound nice. So you just find an order that works and then go with that. All right. So now I want to talk about the number system. For example, the chords that I was playing now: C major, F major, A minor, G major. I don't have a way of playing those chords in another key unless I know the number system. All right. And what if this is a song and a singer comes and then they're singing at a higher key? How am I supposed to match their key? You know? So does that mean like it sounds like it's a lot of work? So that's where the number system comes in. The number system is very useful. So how do we use the number system? The number system basically says this. Instead of saying the notes that are in C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, we can call them in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. All right, and then this applies to chords. Instead of saying this chord is a C major, I can call it a 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 1, 5, 6, 4, 2. You give them numbers now. All right, so what I was playing now, if I'm using the number system, what I'm playing now is no longer C major, F major, A minor, G major. Now it's 1, 4, 6, 5. And because I know that it's 1, 4, 6, 5, I can play it in any key. Let's go to the key of A flat. Let's go to the key of F sharp. All right, so you can play them in any key now because I'm thinking in numbers. I can easily play them in any key, like quickly. All right, in any key. So using the number system, the chords in any major scale are always going to be arranged like this. The 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord are always going to be major chord. The minor, the 2nd chord, 3rd chord, and the 6th are always gonna be minor chords, and the 7th chord is always gonna be a diminished chord. All right. So now we're thinking them in terms of. So now if I say play me a 2-5-1 chord progression. By the way, a chord progression is what I'm doing here. It's basically a sequence of chords. All right. So if I'm playing chords, like I'm just playing chords in a sequence, I'm playing a chord progression. So if someone tells me play a 2-5-1 chord progression, I know to go 2, 5, 1. All right. And I can do a 2-5-1 in any key. A flat, 2, 5. In E, 2, 5. All right. In F, 2, 5, 1. All right. Because now I'm thinking in terms of numbers, but what if I was thinking in terms of like the actual chord names? It was gonna be hard for me to translate these chords to transpose them to other keys. All right, so that's basically the number system. All right, so we're pretty much done here, and I want to give you a way of practicing these things. So here's what you need to do: pick a key that you like. All right, you can say the key of F, for example, and then build a major scale. Learn how to build a major scale, like practice forming a major scale on that key. All right. using the formula whole half whole half. All right, use that formula to build a major scale on that key. Memorize that scale, know all the notes that are in the scale, and then start forming chords. When you practice this, practice them in terms of the number system. Don't practice them as F major, G minor, A minor. Don't practice them. Practice them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. All right. Practice them in terms of the number system. You learn the notes, you learn the chords, you form chord progressions. All right. You get familiar, you get comfortable with playing in that key, and then you start. And then after learning that key, you move to the next key. All right. If you want to know about the equipment that I'm using, the softwares that I'm using, mentorship programs, all that information is in the description of this video.